Act is a tax bill. Article 1, Section 7, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution states explicitly, all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. The Affordable Care Act originated in the U.S. Senate. It would appear that this act may be an illegal tax law, the opinion of a majority of the U.S. Supreme Court notwithstanding. The Supreme Court has reversed its own decision, so the Supreme Court is not infallible. So, do you agree that the Affordable Care Act may be an illegal tax bill, yes or no, and why? And if you agree, what remedy would you propose for the American people? Mr. Nieves, we'll start with you.
I believe that the mandates restrictions within the Act are unconstitutional, and I don't believe that they should be mandates now. The Supreme Court redefines those as now as a tax. And I do believe that while the bill has shortcomings and did not go deep enough, I would be against repealing it as an entirety, because I do believe that it contains some very good measures. As far as forcing the states to sign up for it, I believe that it falls under the states and the people of those states. So if Florida does not want to participate within some of the programs within that bill, I believe it is up to the state of Florida to decide, and for the voters with the power of their vote to make the changes necessary or the improvements necessary. The reality is that we spent nearly 4 years on this topic, and for me to go back and repeal it as entirely would be somewhat of a waste of time, taxpayers' money. I believe it can be improved, and I'll support improving it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nieves. Mr. Oxner.
Yeah, I disagree with Justice Roberts. The Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is clearly unconstitutional. One of the reasons there we have that it originated in the Senate. If it's a tax bill, tax bills have to originate in the House of Representatives. And this is the first time in history that Congress, or the House and the Senate, has taxed people for doing nothing. Usually taxing has an activity associated to it. This is the first time you get taxed if you don't associate with an activity. Now, I have put together a plan to repeal Obamacare, and I put a plan together, and it was just posted on Breitbart.com. So you can go to my website, or you can go to Breitbart.com, and you can go look at the details of what it would do, what it would take to repeal Obamacare, and how we replace it with something better. In 90 seconds, that's going to be hard to do. So go to Breitbart.com, go to my website, and you'll see what the solutions are to really give health care to the people that they deserve in America.
Thank you. Mr. Long?
Yeah, first I want to thank everybody for coming out and for y'all who were involved in hosting the event. First of all, we need to understand that the Constitution says the Congress has the power to regulate interstate commerce, not commerce within the state. And clearly they couldn't do that with Obamacare. It's not commerce just sitting there in your own home and forcing you to buy a product. And so Justice Roberts went to this end-round thing calling it a tax, in which case we know the President and the Congress defrauded the American people. And I agree with your point, Nanette, that those bills have to originate in the House, which it didn't happen, so there'll be some legal challenges with that. It's clearly unconstitutional. What's interesting, NPR asked me as a conservative representative down here in Central Florida what I thought about that. I said, Justice Roberts, his rationale for doing that was very interesting. He said, we should try to uphold any of these laws that the Congress makes if we could possibly can. So that's why I did this end-around tax analysis. That's exactly wrong. The Supreme Court's there to protect your individual God-given rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, to make sure you don't have an out-of-control federal government trampling or infringing on the rights. It's not to allow, or a vehicle to allow the federal government to ruin those God-given rights that our Constitution has given us. And that whole rationale is terrible, and I think we need to relook at it from the very beginning and re-educate the public as really what the role of the federal government is, what our Supreme Court is, which is to protect states' rights and the rights of the individual.
Thank you. Mr. Melendez, and then I realized I didn't give you a chance for opening comments. We'll go back to opening comments.
Yeah, whether you classify it as a tax or a penalty, it's bad policy, it's bad policy. Those are the things that we have to really fix. The federal government's job is not to take over healthcare. when people complain about HMOs making decisions about what is the best for their patients, what cost-cutting measures are best for the patients, we complain about it. All we did was convert it from the HMOs to the federal government. Now we have the federal government telling us what cost measures that we should take and what preventative care measures we should take. I'm very leery of the federal government taking over anything. I mean, they can't even take over VA healthcare. I mean, I have a problem. When I want to try to get a checkup, it takes me 6 months later in a computer printout. Imagine if everyone was on the same system. And it's true, like what Herman Cain said when he was running for president. When he had cancer, diagnosis of cancer is important. Timing is critical in early detection. The faster you detect it, the faster you can correct the problem. And if everyone's under the auspice of the federal government to wait for them to be able to take care of our citizens, we're going to be in a serious problem. So whether it's a tax or a penalty, I disagree with it wholeheartedly. And I'd be more than happy to repeal the bill and actually come up with something better that House Republicans are talking about, which is repeal and replace.
In that regard, I'm going to give you a few seconds to explain. You said you would be happy to replace it. Do you have a plan, or is there a plan? You mentioned that there is a plan out there, the repeal and replace plan. Is that your idea of what?
Yes, part of my plan is looking at opening up the competitive market. Right now, for instance, we have Point Siena in our district. When they wanted to develop a new hospital in Point Siena, they literally had to ask the government permission. If I want to open up a McDonald's, do I have to ask permission from the government and let them know that there's a Wendy's right across the street? And that's the problem. When the federal government or even the state government says that in order for you to build a hospital, we have to look at what's the neighboring populations, how many beds are in the surrounding communities. That is incorrect. That's how they develop a monopoly. And we have to break that monopoly. If somebody has $100 million to build a brand new hospital, they should be able to build it right across the street from another hospital. And then when people go to different hospitals, how do you know which one to go to? The one that is cheaper or that provides a better level of service. So opening up the marketplace to have a competitive option for actual patients to go to would help diminish those costs.
Since I gave you extra time, I'm going to give each candidate, it was about 45 seconds. Sorry, we got off track. I'm going to give each candidate, starting with Mr. Long and then working back to Mr. Nieves and Oxner, and then I'll give you time for opening comments.
The world's first conservatives were your founding fathers and mothers, and they believed you had states for a reason, that the federal government was only supposed to do a few things and do it well. Give you a great military, take great care of your veterans, secure the borders, and do things like the national energy policy. So the first thing the founding fathers or Reagan would say is this something the states should do for themselves? This one-size-fits-all mentality not only divides us as a nation, it doesn't work. And you're turning all this power over to the Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reids of the world, who are no question about the worst money managers in the history of the world. When every day you wake up to a horror story of $12 billion being wasted given to unemployment benefits to legals or $4 billion to legal trial credits, it's insane that we want to keep forcing a one-size-fits-all system on our country from the worst money managers and the people we think are doing a terrible job. I believe in states' rights and let states handle these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Nieves, 45 seconds for rebuttal.
A one-size-fits-all doesn't work, but neither does a one-party side. And I believe that both sides have very, very important points that need to be addressed. I run as an independent. I believe both parties have great ideas and come to the table with solutions to fix our nation's problem. What I don't see is any way of compromising. And I run as an independent because I'm prepared to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oxner, 45 seconds for rebuttal.
Okay. Like I said, the healthcare solutions are a little complex, hard to go into 45 seconds. Go to Breitbart.com and you can see solutions I've put together. And it not only is about healthcare, one of our big problems is Medicare and how Medicare is bankrupting our country, but it's not so much about because we have seniors on Medicare, it's because we have a healthcare system that inflates the cost of everything. When my mother was in the hospital a year ago, she was getting $10 Tylenol pills. I was a little upset and say, I'll run down to the drugstore, I'll buy a whole bottle for less than that. What we've done to our healthcare system is bankrupting our country. I have put together a plan. Republicans have a good plan, but we need fresher ideas. And I'm a businessman. I know how